Okay, everybody. Hello. Welcome to your very favorite Bronze Age Spider-Man podcast. Here comes the Spider-Cast. I'm your co-host, Mike L., and as always, I'm joined by...
Joshua Mervell. And today we're going to be looking at Spidey comics from May of 1984.
That's right, and this is the beginning of a new era. Not only are we getting a new logo designed by Josh, but we're also beginning the era of the alien black costume, right?
Right.
So, I don't know about you, but I'm excited. Okay, and as usual, we have our 32 episode in a row co-host, G.I. Jolie.
Just here representing the year of the rat.
And G.I. Jolie,
Hi.
do you have the honors of introducing our other special guest this week?
Oh, sure, yeah. Okay, so this is a person who we never got to get on camera, I don't think. Maybe one time. It was like a one-time
yep,
deal.
I remember, yeah.
And it was real quick, and it was in front of the Comic Vault table, but it's a friend that we have all the way from Chicago. Windy. I almost said sunny. That's Philadelphia. All the way from windy old Chicago. Drum roll. I can't roll my tongue. Mike DeVivo.
Hello. What's up, guys? How is everybody? It's good to see you guys. I have very, very good memories of us being at C2E2 years ago, talking about comics over dinner after a full night and just basically bonding with you guys on so many different things and having the same kind of passion and excitement about the medium, and the way that we talked, how we talked with our entire bodies about things. So I'm really excited to be here, guys. Thank you for having me on.
You know, that's true. And I have to thank G.I. Jolie for doing most of the networking because I'm pretty quiet when I go to these conventions because I've got my head stuck in a comic box, like the long boxes. So G.I. Jolie did most of the talking. So we can probably thank her for making friends with you.
You're welcome. But also, I also have a very fond... I also have the same, but not the exact same fond memory of that dinner where you say us, but we couldn't tear the mics away from each other. It was Comics Central with those two. I think I sat there with Dave Lasso making comments and me and Dave Lasso were the social butterflies while you guys did all the comic book talking.
That's right.
But
well, it's hard.
Maybe.
Because like in Windsor, I mean, there are a lot of comic fans, but it's really hard to find people, like you said, that are on the kind of the same page about everything.
Yeah. Not to get too off topic, but I grew up a young kid. Some kids, their dad teaches them about shaving and automobiles. I grew up with a dad who taught me about comic books as a kid and why it was important to admire a Neil Adams book. And he put a comic book in front of me and he was like, this is the first time Wolverine was ever in a comic, and it was Incredible Hulk. How about that, kid? Like, those were the types of things he showed me. So from an early age, I remember being, not even a teenager, maybe 7 or 8, and the first comic books I bought were the Batman versus Predator series and like the Defenders, and it was kind of love at first sight ever since then.
So did you grow up being a Spider-Man fan then?
So I did read Spider-Man as a kid. In the 80s, there were select books that I read, but I didn't specifically read this whole entire 3-book run that you had me on. I've looked at the first book. Obviously, it's got such a familiar cover, and I know I've read it a long time ago. But I didn't really read any of the team-up stuff, and I know very little about Black Cat, so it was cool to be able to read these 3 books.
Nice. Okay, so so basically, as everyone knows, this is So we're covering May 1984, and this is when Spider-Man finally got his infamous and famous black costume. We're going to be talking about this more next week in our Secret Wars episode, but one thing that people kind of forget is that basically what happened is at the end of Amazing Spider-Man 252, Spider-Man was in Central Park and this gigantic thingamabob alien thing appeared there, and Spider-Man went into it and it transported him to the Beyonders planet. We didn't know that at that point, but he disappeared. We didn't know where he went. All of the Marvel superheroes except for Daredevil basically did their comic ended the same way that month. They all disappeared, and then the next month they all showed up. But they went out of their way to not talk about what happened because Secret Wars had not begun yet. So I believe a week or two before this issue came out, Secret Wars #1 came out, but we still didn't find out about Spider-Man's black costume. He was still wearing his classic red and blue one. It wasn't until Secret Wars #8 that he finally got the black costume, and we discovered how he gets it and what it actually is and all that stuff. But as of this issue, 252, as well as the other two, we have no idea how he got it, what it is, or what's going on. So it's a big mystery. So I'm going to quickly summarize this. So basically, we touch on the fact that the superheroes have all been missing. Spider-Man shows up. It's kind of weird because he's got Dr. Kurt Connors under his arm, who's the Lizard, as everybody knows. He brings the Dr. Kurt Connors home. He goes home. He's got his costume. We're finding out little clues like the fact that the spider costume is able to absorb his phone and his keys into the costume. It's able to change into street clothes, without there being any visible change there. We touch base with Black Cat, right? Because she was on this idiotic quest to get superpowers from all the different superheroes in New York. And then Spider-Man, this is where he gets weird. He basically goes out because he can't fall asleep. He ends up running into two teenagers who are having a spat, and he's like, I'm going to show you the joys of life. And so he brings them on this adventure, swinging around New York City, seeing the joys of New York City. And then pretty much the story ends, and we get a nice little pinup at the end of Spider-Man kind of, leaping in between a bunch of skyscrapers. And that's pretty much it. And I just want to say quickly, this issue was plotted by Roger Stern, who had just departed the book, but it was dialogued by Tom DeFalco, and it was drawn by the new regular artist Ron Frenz and inked by Brett Breeding. And so we'll start off with you, Mike, since you're a guest host. What was your impression of this story?
Yeah, I really enjoyed this issue. I really liked where they put Spider-Man in the world right when you jump in, kind of through his perspective of where he's at with things. I liked a lot of the jokes. I thought some of the jokes were really funny. I specifically liked the little bit that you mentioned earlier when Peter's symbiote costume turns into a fanny pack. I thought that was really appreciative and funny. And then I really enjoyed the art in this. The art in this reminds me of, and I don't know the artist, but reminds me of the Iron Man issues for Demon in a Bottle, and how expressive that art was of Tony's face, how you could see so much in his reactions. I feel a lot of that happens in these books with Spider-Man and Peter. And I also really, really love how clean looking the aesthetic of the black Spider-Man suit is, how that's something that just has this beautiful silhouette, and it's lit with those nice blue lights. So that is my take on that. I will say, you know what, now that I'm thinking about it, it is a little jarring seeing Peter in the Spider-Man suit, the black costume, being so positive, even though I know, that they're going to get there, just having that foresight to know that that's where the character's going. It's a little weird seeing him in the black costume being so quippy and funny and kind of like, rah-rah about stuff. But I also do want to say, aside from the costume just being, super iconic, the silhouette looking beautiful, it is cool to see Peter wearing black jeans and a black turtleneck. You don't see that very often, so I feel like that was a unique look for him at the time.
Right. I just gotta say quickly, even as a kid, I had the Secret Wars toy of the black costume Spidey, and I loved it. I mean, a lot of costume redesigns I'll kind of roll my eyes at, but I embraced this wholeheartedly when I was a kid. Josh, what's your take on the black costume first?
I love the costume itself. I think it's so fun, and the story as well is really great. I love the idea of this costume that's sentient, and it's kind of like taking over his body, and it slowly turns him into almost like this evil or nasty version of himself, and then eventually leading into I think one of the most iconic Spider-Man villains now. So yeah, it's really great, and I'm really excited to read more of these comics. I will say though, I did like that you started to see kind of him being a little bit more snarky, or maybe it's just me knowing that he's going to kind of be a more edgy version of Spider-Man, but he did seem a little bit more snarky and witty than he normally does. Yeah. And then I'm not, I don't think, it might not have been this issue, but I think he's talking to Robbie.
Yes.
At one point, and he's kind of like snarking back to him a little bit too. And yeah, so it's nice that they at least like knew that's the direction they wanted to go with this, and they started to like slowly add in and have like small hints. Because I think that if you were a reader at the time and didn't, or even today, and you didn't have that prior knowledge of knowing that the suit is going to slowly turn him into kind of like this jerky version of himself, you wouldn't really notice it. But as somebody who is familiar with the character and knows that now, you can slowly see that kind of change in him, which is nice.
Yep. G.I. Julie, first, what's your take on the black costume, the design?
It's so much better. One, it's probably from an artist standpoint easier to draw, because it's just one shade. It's clean. Also, the idea that like you see him go back to that silly tree where he hid his clothes like a week before he slipped into Secret Wars. Like, the suit absorbs those kinds of things, so now he doesn't have to like hide. He doesn't have to carry a backpack and hide it in a trash can in an alley. He just has to think about being in the suit, and it puts him in it. So from a utility standpoint, it gets check marks from me. From a fashion standpoint, it gets check marks from me. Yeah, I just like it. It's super cute. I don't know what else to say. Like,
now, did you notice a difference in the writing? Because this is now a new writer, Tom DeFalco. I mean, he has done a few issues of Marvel Team Up, but do you notice a difference in the writing from Roger Stern?
Yeah, his voice is different. Peter sounds like 50 years older, 50 years grumpier. He sounds like an old retired librarian.
Right. Especially with like telling the kids like, you don't know what you've got, kids.
Yeah.
Like this city's great.
Like, I felt like it. I mean, I up until now it had been Roger Stern and John Romita Jr. and I love that. And I don't think this is quite as good. But one thing I feel when reading this issue is that just this burst of energy. Like, there's something new going on. It feels exciting. It's like an exciting read. However, I did think the structure of the story was weird in that you kind of you build up the mystery of the costume, which is great, but then this whole ending thing with the kids, it's to me not really a story. It doesn't really feel like it just kind of ends. Mike DeVivo, what did you think about that?
Yeah, I would agree, Mike. I would say the same thing actually. I feel like the story, you get your first beat with him and Connors, you think that's probably going to be where the story heads, maybe some kind of further, issues with Connors, fallout with his family or something along those lines. Connors is done for the rest of the day. Then you see, Peter as Spider-Man, going through the city. He has the moment with those two kids, which is like kind of like his shared feel-good moment for them. Gets back out there, and that's kind of the issue as is. I would have liked to see some information with him and Black Cat for them to see each other and actually meet. We know they didn't get to do that. They actually missed each other, and we see that fleshed out later in the issues. But I just feel like it was very disjointed, And one of the things I was thinking while I was reading this issue is, us as comic book readers nowadays and, these times, we don't really focus on the small things like, oh, Peter left his, Spider-Man costume in a nest with birds, and we have to hear why he left it up there. And the fact that the birds were in the, the costume and his inner monologue, like those are things that could bog down a story nowadays that you could get away with back in the 80s and it wouldn't be a big deal.
Like, I love that stuff. Like the little details of Peter Parker's life, like the fact that he has to go in and out of a bathroom light, or a skylight to get to his apartment, and like the fact that he has to store his clothes in like an alley somewhere or in a tree here. I don't mind that at all. But did you? I know that you said you started reading comics sort of in the '90s, but what's your impression of like the style of dialogue and the thought balloons and the narration in this type of comic?
Yeah, I'd say, this issue is pretty easy to follow. There was a lot of dialogue in this issue. I would say not so much dialogue, but word boxes, I feel like these comics had a lot of exposition. So not just the exposition that you would see from, you know, the word balloons of your characters, they're on the page in panel, but also there was exposition by the actual writers trying to explain what happened 3 issues ago or to check out this issue, and that can be a bit too much. This one in particular, though, I felt like was pretty smooth as far as a read goes and information is concerned, and I was pretty happy with how it ended.
All right. Josh, do you have anything else to pick apart with this issue, or?
Not really. I kind of agree that the ending of the story is a little bit weak, but I have a feeling that with the context of Secret Wars, maybe this ending story would be a little bit stronger because it feels like him appreciating that he's back in New York and he's back at home with his family and kind of like back into the pun intended swing of things. Right. So like I get what they were going for, but I think it suffers because it comes before, in release wise, it comes before Secret Wars, and we don't. Besides him talking about like, look at you're in New York, you have so much opportunity. It doesn't really feel like him appreciating it as much. So like I don't know. Maybe it's a stretch for me to even say that. Like. I just assume that's what they were going for. It's not that great, but it's fine.
Yeah, there's some weird foreshadowing happening, though. Like, after he puts them down sort of on a ledge, he says, or in one of those narrative boxes, the city is like any living creature. It has the potential for incredible good or horrible evil.
Yeah, I noticed that, yeah. I do have to say, I think him crumpling up the negatives for the pictures was a little melodramatic, because to me that's a behind the scenes thing where they didn't want to talk about or show what happened in Secret Wars because it hasn't been published yet, right? And so I mean that's fine, but it's kind of like I also know that's the only reason you would do that, because if you had pictures of an alien world, why would you just destroy them, right? No one's gonna believe it anyway. I'll just destroy them. That's kind of ridiculous. But I also want to say briefly, I actually think the last splash page is fairly weak as far as art goes, but this cover, which is also drawn, it's by the same artist, Ron Frenz, but it's inked by Klaus Johnson, and I think it's much better. What do you guys think of this cover?
Yeah, it's great. I think it's good because it's an homage to the original, right? So it's like, so I don't know. Maybe it's just hard to mess up, or maybe it's just because it was like a copy up, but it really does work, and it's great. It's kind of a nice like new reintroduction to this new side of Spider-Man, so it's fun. Yeah, I like the cover.
Okay, so I definitely recommend this. I do lament the loss of Roger Stern, but whatever, all good things come to an end, and I think we're in safe hands, so I'm excited for more. Again, this is an energetic, exciting issue, and we know that there's, you know, cool twists and turns coming, so I recommend it. Mike, do you recommend this issue?
Yeah, I do recommend this issue. I thought the action was quick. I thought it did what it needed to do for the story, and I thought it served to set up further plot developments along the way in the issue, so I recommend it. Awesome.
Okay, Josh, what about you?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend this one. It's a fun little story, not too plot heavy, but there's definitely some fun moments, and all in all, pretty well-rounded issue.
Right. G.I. Jolie?
Yeah. I mean, if you really were wondering where Spider-Man went this whole time, but, you know, we're just like, not upset by getting sort of a lackluster return. Yeah, sure. You can go ahead and read it.
All right. Okay, so now we are going to jump to Marvel Team Up number 141, and just for the record, according to eyewitnesses at the time, this issue actually was published a week before Amazing Spider-Man, so this is the chronological first appearance of the black costume.
Oh, interesting.
Oh.
Yes, that's my opening line on every first date. But anyway, Josh, you can take it from here.
Is this like an unofficial first appearance?
Well, chronologically, 252 is the first appearance.
Right.
But if you were a hardcore collector, you could argue this is actually the first appearance of the black costume because it came out a week before. Yep.
Huh. Well, with this issue, we have it's Marvel Team Ups with Spider-Man and Daredevil. we are picking up where we left off last issue, where there was a huge power outage and there was some like looting going on, and one of the pawn shop owners was shot when his store was getting looted and he was trying to protect his stuff. So we're kind of picking it up here, where this guy has been arrested and he's being blamed for the murder of this pawn shop owner. And Matt knows that he's innocent. Matt Murdock is his attorney, and he knows he's innocent, so he's just trying to figure out who the actual murderer is, so he can prove his innocence. So Daredevil and Natasha are Black Widow are kind of in this like weird relationship. They're not really dating. They're kind of hinting at the fact that there's some sort of, romantic tension going on. So they've been working together to solve who the real killer is. And we see Black Widow go to the pawn shop, and it turns out that it's been bought by this guy named Frank Arnold. And Natasha thinks something weird is going on, and at the same time, Daredevil is at the goons' hideout, and he's trying to get more information from them, and he finds out that they don't know really anything that's going on. We cut to Kingpin, who is in a giant blue diaper, fighting some goons, when he hears the news of this pawn shop owner's death. No. Sorry, he's upset because Daredevil is still around while all the other superheroes are gone, missing, which is like what's going on with Secret Wars.
Right.
Yeah, and then we catch up with Spider-Man, and it's pretty much the same reintroduction of Spider-Man as we see from Amazing. He pops up with Kirk Connors, drops him off, grabs his stuff, and sees the bird's nest in his clothes. So I mean, I can't even remember what happens next.
So basically, yeah. So basically, the wrong person has been accused of this crime, right? And everyone thinks he's guilty because this guy happens to be a hooligan. So they're like, well, he's done other crimes in the past, so he's probably guilty, but he really isn't guilty. But in the end, it ends up being that the only reason he really gets off is because the Kingpin makes a deal with Daredevil.
Right, and because it turns out that the guy who bought the pawn shop, Frank Arnold, he's the one who killed him. He was drunk and did it. He didn't really mean to, or at least he says he doesn't mean to. And what the guy that the pawn shop owner used to work with Kingpin, and he used to, like, I'm assuming, launder money through the pawn shop. Mm-hmm. So when he died, Kingpin knew what happened because he always knows, and like somehow his goons, are in with these other goons that know the information of the pawn shop owner. So Daredevil makes a deal with Kingpin that he'll escort his Kingpin's goons to go and kill Frank in exchange for the gun that was used to kill the pawn shop owner, so he can take it to court and use that as evidence to prove the innocence of the guy that's on trial right now.
Yeah,
and that's when Spider-Man comes in and tries to, like, stop Daredevil, and there's like this weird conflict, and Frank ends up not getting killed, and Spider-Man kind of like shames Daredevil a little bit and says, like, that's not really justice, and there's a little bit of like a self-reflecting moment at the end, and Spider-Man swings off.
Yeah, but that's the end. Yeah. No, you know what? I just got to quickly point out, this issue was plotted again by Tom DeFalco, but it was written by a guy named Jim Owsley, who ends up becoming the editor of Spider-Man at age 23.
Wow.
Yes, incredible. He ends up hiring Peter David, and basically his run of Spider-Man is my favorite of all time. He ends up getting tricked by Jim Shooter into firing Tom DeFalco, who was also his sort of boss as executive editor. He's so upset by this, he changes his name to Christopher Priest. And so there's a huge backstory behind this, which we'll get into as these episodes go on. Yeah. But so this is
more exciting than Marvel Team Up.
I know. There's that. Yeah. But to be fair, Mike DeVivo, if you listen to our podcast, one of the running gags is how much we despise Marvel Team Up. This one's actually pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. This one was surprisingly fun.
Despite being still pretty bad.
Yeah. Again, I think it's just because I'm so used to Marvel Team Up being so god awful that when there's at least something competent going on, I'm like, oh, is this good? Is this a good comic?
Right.
So I definitely didn't hate this one like I normally do with Marvel Team Up. I thought that honestly, every time the Kingpin shows up, it's so much fun. That I think is the best part of this comic. When I joked about it before about Kingpin being in a diaper, but he's in this like karate speedo thing. Right? Yeah, it's like a sumo wrestler type of thing. And he has his assistant there in this room, and he says, you may begin your report once the exercises begin. And he like goes into his stance and he says, gentlemen, and all of these guys with like daggers and stabs and nunchucks start attacking him, and he takes them all down as his assistant, the arranger, tells him, and like briefs him on what's going on in New York. And it's so fun. It's so intense. He doesn't even really break a sweat. He takes them down so easily. He's so strong. He accidentally breaks one of these guys' like hands. Yeah. And he just casually is like, "Oh, I'm so sorry that I've hurt you. I didn't mean to shatter your wrist." And he casually kind of just brushes it off like, "Please pay this man double what he normally would make as he's spending his time recovering from this injury." And walks out. Like, it's just, he's so powerful. Like, not just because he took down all of these guys all at once. It's his power that he holds over people, and like his wealth and his knowledge that he has of everything that's going on. He's such a fun character, and I love whenever he shows up.
Right. Mike DeVivo, what did you think of this issue?
It's going to be funny because for me, my take is almost exactly the same as his. My most enjoyable moment in this book was the Kingpin scene.
Yeah, I've definitely seen it many times. Yep.
Not only because of how it was written, but also how it was drawn. The sequence when he's getting that information delivered to him in front of his lackeys and he's fighting them, it is drawn in such an iconic way. I think about that scene, and when we were reading it, or when I was reading it, and I went back to, like, I'm pretty specifically sure they did this scene in the Spider-Man animated series. I definitely know they did it later in the comic books. Obviously, they've repeated it in Daredevil. So if this is one of the first times you see that, for me, it just shows you how impactful that character is on media, and how that version of the character is on media even today. And it does enough to show you that he's a threat mentally and a physical threat to Spider-Man and anyone else in a matter of 4 or 5 panels. So I thought it was super effective. The thing that I had an issue with in this issue is that it's called a Marvel Team Up, and I think we maybe see Peter as Spider-Man and Daredevil on the same page maybe twice. So I don't know, how that's supposed to work. It just overall made it feel like a very pointless team up for a Marvel team up comic book, in my opinion.
Yeah, right. It's so strange that for a title called Marvel Team Up, it has to always be Spider-Man.
Well, there's been a few, remember? Remember the Hulk
but it's always like reprints, right? Or like weird one-offs.
Yeah,
it just seems like it would be such a stronger book if they just focused on good characters, like stories with characters that make sense. You know what I mean? Like teaming up, and their stories belong together. And every single issue of Marvel Team Up, it's Spider-Man is just dropped into somebody else's comic, and it never works.
Right. If this was a Marvel Team Up and it was just Natasha with Daredevil and they went on a mission as a couple together, it makes more sense. Instead, we're supposed to believe that somehow Spider-Man and Daredevil teamed up even though they were doing their own things the entire time. I mean, everything Spider-Man related in this issue is Spider-Man doing the things that we already just saw him do the issue before. He finds his costume. He goes through the same panel issues of what he was doing. He then goes to the Bugle. It's all the same stuff. So it just seems very, very pointless and needless. Was there a Marvel team up with The Thing? Maybe one of the very first specific ones that I remember seeing back in the day?
Oh, that was you mean Marvel 2-in-1?
Okay, yeah, that book to me read way better as far as team-ups are concerned. You know, from the jump on those books, it seems like the characters are attached at the hip, or they're already together doing something, right? There doesn't have to be any happy sense. So I like that. And then whereas, you know, we have in this book, you know, you don't know what's going on. There's 3 extra characters doing their own things. You're following and jumping around between those characters at times. And then, you know, Black Cat, I think, is Black Cat in this? I feel like she was mentioned as well in it, and I'm not 100% sure.
I don't think so in this one,
no.
but honestly, I wouldn't be surprised either.
Oh yeah, maybe I'm getting it confused. I thought maybe there was a panel with her, at least on one, but it doesn't look like it. But overall, you know, my favorite part about the book was Kingpin. I think followed by Daredevil. I think one of the things that is kind of sad to me is that, you know, the way Daredevil is written in this book is the way that you still see him now 40 years later. You know,
I don't mind that. I don't know.
Right, but I'm saying, you know, Daredevil himself, the way that he's written, it's very representative of the way we idealize him now. So again, it's more a reflection on current books and not older books. But yeah, that would be my take. Definitely Kingpin, a positive, Daredevil, a positive.
G.I. Jolie, what'd you think of this issue?
Oh,
hello?
Yeah. Still the same steaming stack.
Okay, so you obviously didn't
Super
enjoy
hot.
it as much as us.
Oh, whoa, so much. So good. I'm just trying to think of like parts that I liked, and it's not coming easily. I just remember opening it and then just seeing like the big splash page of all the baddies being bad, and I was like, God damn it. I think I immediately texted you guys and was like, I don't want to read this.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it. And then and then Josh was like, but Kingpin in a diaper. And then I went back. I went back for that. I'm here for a gigantic man in his sauna costume. Does that count as athleisure wear in the 1980s?
If you're being athletic in it, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, as athletic as Kingpin is,
Right.
like I feel like he's got a lot of upper body strength and maybe doesn't do a lot of cardio, so he probably isn't terribly fit, but he's like an enforcer type.
Right.
Well, they even say in here that technically it's all muscle, which I have a hard time believing. But anyway,
one big round muscle.
Right. Let's just
day every day.
we'll just quickly talk about the art too. The art is pencils by Greg LaRocque and inks by Mike Esposito. I think it's fine. The storytelling's fine. The layouts are definitely a lot more plain than the Ron Frenz pencils, and amazing. Mike, what did you think of the art in this one?
You know, I'd say aside from the way the Kingpin area is laid out, that fight specifically, and I thought the way that Daredevil was drawn, this issue is kind of messy for me. There are moments in this issue where I cannot figure out what is going on in the panels based on just the sheer volume of characters and the way that the rest of the word balloons are sitting there. It's just very messy and pretty chaotic. It doesn't, as a reader, let me easily look through with my eyes what I need to do as far as get the story across. I definitely was jumping around and getting confused at certain moments.
Right. Okay. G.I. Jolie, what did you think of the art?
I agree. It looked like a comic. It tasted like a comic. It was a comic.
It was also just extremely flat too.
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
That's what
I mean,
plain.
you can really notice how flat it is when you're comparing the same exact scene from this issue to Amazing, when him and Kirk Connors jump back through to Earth. And they're in Central Park. It's so extremely flat. There's no texture. There's no depth. There's no, like, you can't tell where they are even.
Yeah,
That's a good point.
It's the White Castle of the Spider-Man universe.
Yeah, it's
Flat.
very
Boring.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
Textureless.
And also, I gotta say that while I do like Jim Owsley's writing, the fact that they recreated the scene from Amazing word for word, what a waste of space.
Yeah.
Like, at least show a different perspective. Like, maybe show the guy on the street watching. So it's like, what's the point of just having the same scene? It was just a waste. But anyway. So, but yeah, it is fascinating to see the same scene drawn by different artists, because then you can compare them more accurately, right? But I don't know. I mean, this issue, again, definitely above average. I didn't hate it, but it still wasn't great. But I give it a mild recommendation. Mike, what about you?
I have a hard time recommending it. Aside from that, I'll recommend it based on the importance of that Kingpin scene for sure, just for posterity and history.
Okay. But
it's not an easy read. Not something I would return to.
Okay, and Josh?
No, I don't think I would recommend it. I think that the first half of the book starts out a little bit stronger, and then when Spider-Man comes in, it honestly falls apart, like, completely. Like, I don't know. It's. I don't think it's a recommend for me.
G.I. Jolie.
Well, just in case anyone didn't think or didn't get what I thought of it, I don't recommend it, especially if you're looking for a Spider-Man book that doesn't appear as if he's shoehorned in and around a Daredevil story.
Right.
Yeah, it's just bookended, or like Daredevil is being flanked by Spider-Man, who seems to be peering in on him, and it's just like, man, if you're looking for a Spider-Man story, this ain't it.
Yeah.
All right, so now we're gonna move to Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man number 90. Mike, are you still okay with summarizing this one quickly?
Yeah, sure. Let me take a crack at it. So we open up with Felicia Hardy in a beautiful panel, flying them into the streets of New York with a moon that has a face in it for some reason, which I am not entirely sure about.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, but we see her, go through her trials and tribulations recently of trying to get superpowers to help Spider-Man. You see her talk about how, she failed him. She almost died in their battles against, the Green Goblin. The battle against Mr. Hyde, which was cool. The Mr. Hyde reference, you don't see that too often. And we kind of see where she's going, and she's talking about how she's gotten her powers. She's reflecting back on it, so you're going through her take. And surprise, surprise, Kingpin was responsible. So yeah, she's having a crisis of conscience now. She's in her head saying, I know I got these powers from Kingpin. He did, though, kind of show me, based on me getting the powers, that he's going to need me one day for something. So obviously I have that now that I have to tell Spider-Man about. Not only do I have to tell him and reveal him that I find these powers out, but I should be honest with how I got them. So we follow Black Cat as she's going through every aspect of Peter's life. She visits the Bugle without him being there, asking for Peter, which is really strange and probably shouldn't have happened. She ends up going to his own home and runs into Aunt May. Black Cat's basically at this point stalking Peter Parker, trying to find him, and the issue ends with her arbitrarily running into him and finally having to open up about what she may say, but they leave it for the next issue possibly. A couple of the other cool things that I wanted to mention is that they do focus on her power. She has a power, it looks like at one point she runs into some thugs and fights them. There's power of bad luck, and it's interesting to see how the writer deals with that power specifically in this book. I thought there were some fun ways it happened. And then also I thought it was very cool she got to visit Vision and Wanda, and they have a bit of a relationship talk about things, kind of talk to her about where the rest of the Avengers are, and it sets her kind of on her path after that. So I wanted to mention the Vision shout out as well.
I just got to actually quickly say, when I was reading this issue, I actually skimmed over that Vision part because I thought it had nothing to do with the story.
It doesn't really. No, it's pretty much just because they realized that she didn't have literally anybody to talk to because everybody's not on this planet. So they're like, crap, who didn't make it into Secret Wars? I guess these two fools. Here, shove these guys in the comics, so she has somebody to talk to.
There is a moment earlier, though, too, I forgot to mention, where you do see Felicia go into the apartment, just missing Peter from the first issue that we had spoken about, and that is where she runs into Aunt May, and so you get to see that interaction between them. So I thought that was a good way to place the story overall into the world, so you know what Black Cat's doing as everyone else is doing their thing. But that was, that's very small as far as a positive there for me.
Right. So yeah, G.I. Jolie, what'd you think of this issue?
Remember that one episode where we're like, oh man, it'd be really awesome if we just had, if we could just hear Black Cat's thoughts and feelings, if we just had like a dedicated comic for her as part of this universe. It'd be cool if they just like focused on that. And we're given that opportunity when you sent Spider-Man and literally everybody else off-world, and they took it and they wiped their asses with it because this is effing terrible. Hey, they brought back the landlady at least because that was necessary. Oh yeah. Oh god. You know, just all the mean bones in New York are in her body, but like, come on, really? This is it? It was still like a 3-page recap of all the dumb bullshit we read about her doing in the last 5 issues.
Yeah.
Right. Like I want to know what Black Cat does with her life. I want to know like her story and how she lives her day to day, but we can't even have that. It still needs to be her obsessing over Spider-Man and going around and messing up his life. Like she's going to the Daily Bugle and screaming, "Where's Peter Parker?" Going to Aunt May's, "Where's Peter Parker? I need to find Peter." Like, what are you doing? It's so dumb.
Right?
Are you kidding? Like, you're going to blow this for him. Like, you're going to blow his secret identity. It just,
the types of, and she does it on every occasion, just in case anyone was wondering. Right. Every single time, it was very apparent. But for somebody whose primary, like, one-track mind is full of only thoughts of Peter, like, you would think that this kind of behavior would occur, like that the result of exposing who he is to people in real life, you would think that would occur to her, but it doesn't, because apparently not only is she only preoccupied with becoming super powered in order to appease him, she's also dumb. So,
well, I think she's a manic pixie dream superhero girl, right? Like, she just only exists to help Spider-Man be obsessed with Spider-Man, but she really has no inner life, right?
Yeah, I mean, other than being like this visual eye candy for boys to masturbate to in the middle of the night, like, for fuck's sake, sorry.
And like, she doesn't even have a relationship with him.
No.
Like, their entire relationship is, I want to swing across the city, and Peter going, yeah, let's go swing across the city. And then obviously they run into crime. They start fighting crime. She almost gets hurt. Spider-Man says, I can't be with you because you're going to die and I can't be a superhero with you.
Right.
That's their entire... You can tell that this was not written by a woman.
Yes.
You know, like it's...
And, you know, the thing is, I don't want to pick on Al Milgrom, but he's notoriously disliked as an artist. I don't think his writing's great either. I don't know if you've noticed, but he's taken over from Bill Mantlo. I think this is his first issue. And he did a run of the Hulk in between John Byrne and Peter David, and it is, in my opinion, unreadable. And so we are stuck with him for the next 10 issues. It doesn't get any better. I don't hate his writing, but I also don't like it. I don't like his art, but as I've said before, Jim Mooney's inks are so good that it makes it bearable, in my opinion. I want to ask you, Mike, what do you think of that last page with Spidey jumping down through the trees? Do you like the way that there's no highlights on his costume, it's just solid black, or do you like the blue?
Oh no, it was so bad. And apparently, you know, the leaves are as the same color of fuchsia pink as the bark is on the tree. It was pretty messy, and I don't know if the issue was the age of the comic itself, so maybe, or the way the colors were stuck to the page back then, but things felt so off color wise. I mean, Black Cat's face specifically was pigmented red. I mean, she looked like she was sunburnt.
Yeah, and this has not been recolored. This is the original colors. So yeah, I mean, Josh and Jolie, I don't know if you have anything else to say about the art. It's pretty much the same as it's been for 30 issues in a row.
Yeah, yeah. There's really not much to say. It's fine and works when it's good, and then when it's bad, it's almost awful.
Yeah, I don't think the storytelling is bad. Yeah, like I don't think he's a good artist, but in a way, it's slightly more dynamic than the Greg LaRocque pencils on Spectacular. Like he's not as skilled an artist, but I think the layouts might be a little bit better.
Yeah, maybe I can understand what's happening better, but
yeah.
I mean, yeah, even like this, like the second page, is also just like, why? What? Like, there's so much going on. It's so messy and all over the place, and you have the Hobgoblin in the foreground.
Yes.
You've got like Doc Ock and the Owl in the background, their faces. You have Spider-Man like holding her limp body, and then underneath Hobgoblin in between his legs, you have them like tackling each other, and then Mr. Hyde's over. Like, there's just so much. It's like, why? What's happening where we need to like see all of this?
Mike, do you have any explanation for the moon with the Kirby-esque face on it? It's really stood out to me.
No, I didn't even notice that. I'm assuming it's
Kingpin.
Because
he's the one that gave her the powers, and this is like the first issue we actually see her using her new powers that she got.
Yeah.
Because it was the previous issue where she went and got like superpowers because she wanted to be strong like Spider-Man, so that way he would accept her into his superhero life.
Yeah, I think it is because also she mentions him by name, or the narrator mentions Kingpin by name, so that's probably Kingpin's face, and it's kind of ridiculous.
If you see it later, it's in the panel where she says, "But still the cold moon glares." The face is in there again.
Oh, really? Okay.
Really?
It's so weird. It doesn't make any sense to me personally, but I guess the way you explained it, it could. But just his choice to put it in again later is just silly.
What page? Like at the end when...
It's page 9, the last panel. You can see an eye, nose.
Oh my god!
Oh yeah, that's right. I don't know. It's ridiculous, but at least he had he put in the effort to bring it back. I don't hate it.
Yeah, honestly, every time that we see stuff like that happen, where we see these ghosted images of characters or Thanos, I don't know, in these books, it's always kind of, I think it is supposed to be like a representation of their inner thoughts, because we always see Spider-Man flying around the city and with the ghosted images of all the women he's wronged in the sky, and much like this. So I think I think someone is right. Was it Josh? It's Kingpin.
Yeah.
I just thought maybe it was a Kirby reference, or he had like a tip of the hat to him, because it just looks so much like something New Gods. Like,
yeah.
Maybe,
also, I got to point out this page, this page 9 is actually a really good page in my opinion. This opening panel with her jumping in front of the moon, then a big close up of her face, then pointed down fisheye lens of the city, and then the last page of her kind of leaping. It's actually a really well designed page, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so I'll just say that I had this whole Al Milgrom run, 90 to 100. I had it all as a kid, and I sold all of them. Then I bought a few of them back. I can see why I sold it, but I don't hate it. Like, again, I love the inking so much, it makes it readable to me. So, I'll give this a mild recommendation. Mike DeVivo, what about you?
I'm going to say, based on how Black Cat was written in this issue and the fact that I feel like she didn't really go through anything specifically, her character didn't change. I mean, we learned that she has new powers and she had the crisis of conscience with Peter. But as far as like how she was being portrayed, it just doesn't work for me. And I unfortunately, I'm going to have to disagree and not recommend it.
Well, hey, we never said these comics were good. But anyway, so yeah, Jolie, do you recommend this one?
Oh my god, I'm so conflicted. I'm sorry, my pacing is so it's terrible. Okay, mostly because I want to recommend it, because it wraps up the Black Cat thing for you if you need that wrapped up, but does it? So no, I don't recommend it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
So we'll say no.
you know what? There's a couple of real sexy shots of her that just gorgeously rendered. So
Yeah.
if you for the Black Cat completist, go ahead and take a crack.
All right, Joshua Mervell.
No, I don't think I do recommend it. I think that in the next issue, we're going to get a recap of what happened in this one. So I think that if you really want to know what happens in this one, read issue number 92 or 91. Right. And maybe it'll be better than this one, and you'll also find out what happens in this issue. So,
all right. So yeah, that wraps up the first episode covering the black costume era of Spider-Man. We want to give a big thank you to Mike DeVivo for joining us. Yeah.
May I do a shameless plug?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, please
Tell
do.
us what you got coming up. Yeah.
Okay, guys, so I stream on Twitch. I stream, my schedule currently right now is Sundays, Mondays, and Wednesdays from 8 to 10, and Fridays from 7 to 10, or as long as I want. I'm a variety streamer. My name there is Sign, and it is pronounced S_I_G_N. Stands for Shut In Gamer Network. I am your Shut In Gamer. I play, like I said, a variety of games on those days. On Fridays specifically, we do a thing called Casual Couch Hangs, where we have people come on to the chat. We interact with you guys pretty high. I have a bunch of different entertainment things that I do for you guys on stream. We treat it like it's like a Saturday morning show or a Saturday afternoon show. Have some jokes, have some laughs and fun. And then one last thing is to tie it into Spider-Man. I will be getting a PS5 and we will start streaming Miles Morales the day it drops on the 12th. So I'll have unboxings on that, and you guys can find all information. I'm sure it'll be attached to this podcast, but you guys can find the links in the bio. But yeah, join me there. Look up Shut In Gamer if you want to, or Sign on Twitch if you don't want to have the URL, and I should pop up. My beautiful bearded face should be there for you guys.
Right.
Awesome.
That's great. All right. Okay.
I'm going to subscribe now.
So yeah, I'd love to see you guys there. Obviously, you guys included in the podcast right now. I'd love to see you guys show up if you have a Twitch. We can collab, see what's going on. But much love and appreciation for you guys allowing me to be on.
And we definitely would like to have you back on again in the future. So we'll definitely be contacting you again. Yeah, and when this pandemic, when they get the Russian cure or the Trump cure, we'll be sure to take it, and we'll be crossing the border again soon, and we can come visit you.
And hey, yeah, either that'll work with the cure, we can just do what Trump wants, which is the whole herd mentality here thing. Guys, pray for me. I am in the States, and I am in Chicago, doing the right thing as I should be doing. So wearing a mask, keeping myself social distance, and looking out for my friends and family.
Well, maybe after November 3rd, there'll be a mass migration, so we'll see. Yeah. And we also want to thank G.I. Jolie again for joining us.
Oh, no thanks necessary.
No, please, thank you.
Just send Doritos. Coolidge, please.
And Joshua Mervell, you can take it from here.
Yeah, well, we also want to thank you guys for listening to the podcast. It really helps when you leave us a review over on Apple Podcast, or if you prefer, you can drop us a line on Twitter at HCT Spidercast. We're going to be posting episodes pretty much anywhere you can find podcasts, so you can listen to it anywhere you prefer. We want to keep that conversation going, so please keep in touch.
That's right, and we're doing a chronological review of every 80s Spider-Man comic. We just reviewed the first appearance of the Black Costume, and next week we will be doing a live episode reviewing Secret Wars 1 to 12, so be sure to join us. And until next Monday, this has been Here Comes the Spider-Cast.
All right, see you then.